So a lot of you might already know what gerrymandering is and why it's awful, but you might not know how much damage it's really caused. So I looked up where the district lines in my town are and found this spot which blocks most of the wind, which sits right on the border of 2 of them. On this side of the camera, property values are a bit higher and they tend to vote Republican. On that side of the camera, they're a bit lower and it tends to vote Democrat. Gerrymandering has been around since the beginning of the Constitution, but it got its name when Governor Gerry of Massachusetts carved up Boston to benefit his party. If you squint your eyes and have a lot of alcohol, a lot of imagination, one of the districts looks like a salamander. Get it? Jerry, salamander, gerrymander? They were big on puns back in the day. We've all heard that story though, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. Why is it such a big problem now? Well, first of all, who gets to draw these lines anyway? I do. And I do. In other countries like Australia, they try to have nonpartisan groups draw the lines. But here in the US, the politicians themselves and their parties get to decide. They've always made districts that favor themselves and protect them from competition. That's why a lot of politicians are incumbents that have been there since before you were born. Imagine each district as a little tug of war. Each party has equal teams and either could win. So why has this changed? The digital revolution. The district lines are redrawn every 10 years after the census in order to create areas of equal population. Parties have always used that information in their favor, but in 2000 and especially 2010, they were able to use computers in order to carve up not just neighborhoods, but sometimes individual blocks. It's not too surprising that your neighbor might be in a different district than you, but the neighbor on the other side of that neighbor might be in your district. Your district might be carved up in such a way that your party always loses. Or you might be clumped together in such a way that your party always wins. CGP Grey did a fantastic video about how districts can be carved up unfavorably. I definitely recommend you check it out. But just in case you think I'm lying about this, this is the 4th district of Illinois. That's not 2 districts, that's 1. You see that little strip along 294 that connects them? Genius. This area is drawn specifically to include only Hispanic neighborhoods, and Hispanic people tend to vote only one way. Austin is a pretty liberal city, probably the biggest one in Texas. So instead of giving them their 2 Democrat seats, we carved it up into 3. You see that orange piece there? That's where all the Democrats live. We call it the Fajita Strip. Now the pink and yellow districts are so diluted by the rural areas that the Republicans naturally win, giving Austin only 1 Democrat seat. To be fair, the people of Austin did take this to the Supreme Court and it was declared unconstitutional. But the people who were elected still got to keep their seats. So what? They've been doing this forever and they just turned it into a science. What's the big deal? Well, when you're able to carve up districts like this, the tug of war is broken. There is no opposing team. So who wins? The anchor. For those of you who aren't big tug-of-war enthusiasts, the anchor is the most important person of the team. The most Democrat of Democrats. When you aren't competing against the other guy, you don't have to make any more compromises and you're not being pulled towards the middle. You don't have to appeal to the few members of the opposing party who might live in your district because there is no competition. Which is why a lot of these seats, especially at the state level, go unopposed. When you're safe from competition from the other party, who does the anchor have to worry about? A bigger anchor. The Republican who can out-Republican the most Republican Republican. Which explains why our elections seem like they're getting more and more partisan every year. When your district is carved up so perfectly it only contains 1 party, the person who appeals to that party the most is going to win, not the person who's closer to the center. Which is how you end up with more extreme candidates who are less likely to work across the aisle. I refuse to work with the other party because it makes me look weak. America would just be better off if they all just disappeared anyway. Yeah, that's a good idea. Do you know what a country with only 1 party looks like?
Pretty good, actually.
Right, so realistically, instead of having 2 parties that are willing to work together, we end up with a tug-of-war with no rope. The 2 parties just drift further and further apart. Eventually something will pop up in the middle. It's just going to take some time, or something really drastic. A lot of people might draw parallels between the Civil War and now, but I wouldn't go so far. The party division was a lot more geographic back then. The Mason-Dixon line separated people of different views. Sure, there were people who disagreed with their neighbors, but they either moved, voluntarily or not, or died, voluntarily or not. Now our country looks very different. The political boundaries aren't so well defined. You aren't going to have neighbors willing to go to war with neighbors. Is gerrymandering solely to blame for the current political climate? The huge divide and lack of cooperation? Of course not. Another major factor is another result of the digital revolution, the ability to choose where you get your news from, which is a whole video topic in itself. Gerrymandering is just one of the contributors to the problem, and we have to dismantle the problem in order to solve it. So what can we do about this? Well, now that you know, and knowing is half the battle. Anyway, knowing about the problem is the first step. The only people capable of changing the system are the people who benefit from it. So I don't know, maybe support candidates that are willing to shoot themselves in the foot? The truth is, I don't know what we can do about it, but at least now, you know better.